Beautiful. So today we are making double choc crinkle cookies. And so they're a little bit different than your regular choc chip cookies because you can see in the picture that there is that crinkling. And that is all about the butter-sugar ratio. And so they'll look a little bit different. And we want them to be crinkled. There's nothing wrong with them. That is exactly the outcome that we're after. So we're going to start with our 5 safety tips. Then we're going to chat about the ingredients, the equipment, and then we're going to get into our cooking. Beautiful. All right then. So 5 safety tips are: wash your hands. Keep your hands away from your nose and your mouth. Cough and sneeze into your elbow. 4th thing, speak nicely about food. We always speak nicely about ingredients, even if we don't like them. If you've been in my class for a while, you know that I do not like corn. And nearly every single in-person class that I've ever done over the years, there is always somebody, at least one person, that doesn't like tomatoes. So I always say, you know, one person's poison is another man's, you know, treasure. So always speak nicely about food. And the last one is keep your utensils pointing downwards, particularly if you've got someone in the kitchen with you. All right. Beautiful. My friend just messaged me, who we went out with on the weekend, said, I'm just letting you know I've got COVID. So I'm really hoping that I don't have it. But if I do, I do. Better for us to be here at home with me not spreading my love around. Okay, double choc crinkle cookies. So the prep time, quite a long time. Connor and Chase, I'll get back to you with that question in a moment. Prep time is 3 hours and 20 minutes, but the cook time is actually only 12 minutes. So there's a long chilling time in this recipe. You can see the red arrows. There's a couple of red arrows here, and we will get to that as we get through the recipe. The red arrows, what I do is I will say to you, if you need help, now is a point in the recipe that you can go and ask someone for help. Great. Okay. So our ingredients, and what I'm doing here is all we're doing is checking that we've got our ingredients on the workbench. So we're not worried about the volumes or the amounts at this stage. We're just checking that we've got everything. So you will need some unsalted butter. You'll need some granulated sugar. So when you see granulated sugar in a recipe, it's just simply white sugar. You'll need some brown sugar. Got my handy dandy no frills brown sugar. You'll need an egg. You'll need some vanilla, and it doesn't matter if you've got flavouring, extract, essence or paste. Any of those will work. You'll need some, it says all-purpose flour. So all-purpose flour is plain flour. So when you read a recipe in the future, plain flour. Who had to Google that? Anyone Google? All right, great. Because that is all about learning. Then you'll need some cocoa powder. You'll need some baking soda. So baking soda or bicarb soda is not baking powder. We'll chat about that. You'll need some salt, and you'll need some choc chips. And the question was, do we have to use choc chips or can we use baking chocolate? Oh yeah, you can use baking chocolate. Yeah, you just have to chop it up into like little chippy bits. Good question. Because I am all about the swappables. So if there is something that if there is an ingredient that you can use instead, I'm all for it. Big into, if you don't like this, swap it out, or if you haven't got it at home, often there's something else that you can use instead. So, and you can use, so semi-sweet, in Australia, we call that milk chocolate. It doesn't matter if you want to use white chocolate chips, milk chocolate chips, or dark chocolate chips. It's all about the flavour. And so that's just another, when you read a recipe from another country, they will use different words. And it's a great opportunity for us to learn how to read a recipe that isn't exactly what we used to. All right, and you'll need some more white sugar. Confectioner's sugar is just icing sugar. Beautiful. Okay, then you will need measuring cups and spoons, a large and a medium bowl, a mixer, whether it's a stand mixer or like if you've got it on a stand, like Kitchen Chef, what do you call them? Yep, KitchenAid, or just your handy dandy. Today I'm just using my just simple mixer. I think I bought it at Woolies, that one. You'll need a scraper or a spatula. A baking sheet is just a baking tray. Which is behind me, just your baking tray. Some baking paper. Baking paper. Or if you at home use silicone baking mats, you can use that instead. And I think that is it. And oven mitts, of course, and a cooling rack for afterwards. But that's, you don't need to bother getting them out now. Right. Okay, so grab a large bowl. A large bowl if you're using a hand mixer, but if you're using your stand mixer, just grab the mixing bowl from your stand mixer. Now, I'll just remove my face because nobody needs my face to cook. Great, that will make it a little bit easier for you. Beautiful. Okay, and we're going to add, it says half a cup of unsalted butter. Now, half a cup is 120 grams. 120 grams. And I'm forever Googling conversion. So I have like a literal, on my phone, I'm always converting. What does this mean? So 120 grams. And we do need the butter to be, because we're going to put it in the stand mixer, we don't want it to be too hot. Sorry, we don't want it to be too runny. But we also need it to be a little bit soft. So this is just something that I have done in the past. So I've got a jug of boiling water, and I've poured the water in, and then I'm going to pour the water out. So this is if your butter is too hard. So I'm just going to pour the boiling water out. And then I've got that jar, and you can use a bowl, you can use anything else. And if you put that jug just over the top, I've got a big cereal bowl there. If you put that over the top, it will soften your butter without melting it. So everyone's going to be different. Some of you will have had your butter out all day, all morning, just so that it's mixable. Now, if we melt the butter, that's going to be different again. Without confusing you, you want it soft, but you don't want it melted because our cookies won't turn out. So let me just make sure. So with your butter, 120 grams of butter, you're going to add that to your big bowl. Great. And then once you've added it to your bowl, Let me just get rid of my rubbish here. I'm just going to take a knife and break up the butter. And what this does, I'm just going to break it up so that it's going to be easier for our mixer to break it up. So be really careful, got a sharp knife. Depending on how hard your butter is, we just want to break it into some smaller pieces. You can do this before you put it in the bowl if that's a little bit easier for you. All right, just some big chunks. So I've got my butter there. Then we're going to add half a cup of white sugar. Now, we spoke yesterday about making sure that you have got an accurate measure of butter. Now, you can see, you might be able to see that it's actually a little bit high. So I'm going to, using just a fork, I'm going to level it, because it's important that we get the right measures when we're baking. So half a cup of white sugar. And then we're going to measure half a cup of dark or brown sugar. And brown sugar is a little bit different than the granulated sugar. That's why you call it, in America, they call it granulated sugar, is because the brown sugar is slightly stickier. So I'm going to actually press that down. And when I press it down, that will give you the accurate measurement. So we're using two different kinds of butter because it's going to give us a nicer flavour. So once you've got your brown sugar and it's been firmly packed, that's what we're after, firmly packed, add it to your bowl. Great. And we chatted yesterday about, as you use your ingredients, make sure that you pop lids back on or seal up jars. Make sure that you don't leave bottles with the lid off. And it's just a lot, you've got a greater chance of not spilling anything. Great. Now we're going to cream our butter and sugar. But before we do that, I want you to grab your egg, and we're going to crack our egg just into a little cup or a little bowl. So we've got that ready. So at the moment, we're just getting ready to cream our butter and sugar. So I'm just going to tap and crack. And the reason that I put it into a separate bowl is that it's just so much easier for me to fish out. Oh, I'm throwing my eggshell around. It's so much easier for me to fish out a little bit of shell, or if there's any nasty blood in there, it's easier to do it there than to, once I add it and then, oh no, there's a little bit of shell in there, I've got to fish it out. So we have that nice, and I just put it in a little bowl. And I'm also going to just add to my bowl or cup, doesn't matter what you use, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So we're just doing this ahead of time. So I've got my little bowl, I've got my measuring spoon, and I'm going to measure at the side. So I'm not measuring over the bowl. Fabulous. And then just add it to your egg. Pop the lid back on your vanilla. Beautiful. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cream the butter and the sugar. And so what we're doing here is we want, when we do this, we're adding, I'm doing my fingers, we're adding little air pockets to our butter. And so that creates a lighter cookie. So it's not like a pancake, it's a cookie. So that's the reason that we're creaming our butter and sugar together. So grab your stand mixer or your hand mixer and you're going, let's look at the recipe. It says right back at step 1, it says in the large bowl, beat the butter and sugar and brown sugar together on a medium-high speed until fluffy and light in color, about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, what you'll find is that you'll need to use your spatula. Here's my spatula. So you'll probably mix for about a minute and then you'll have to scrape down the sides because what will happen is that your mixture will go up the sides. So after about a minute, stop your beaters, give it a scrape around, then mix it for another minute, and we'll mix for 3 minutes altogether. So you may want to, if I get really noisy, you may want to mute me in case I'm too noisy. Beautiful. Yeah. I've got flour everywhere. All right. Just going to give it a little mix. Start off on low. I'm swapping my bowl because I'm going to get this everywhere. All right, you can see what my mixture looks like now after 2 minutes. So it's no longer granulated. We just need to do 1 more minute to get it a little bit more creamier, and it will go a little bit lighter because we're adding air to it. So 1 more minute. Oh, it's noisy. All right, now once you've done your 3 minutes of mixing your or creaming your butter and sugar, and you can see that it's like the sugar is suspended in the butter now. So that's what's going to create our lovely cookies. The next thing we're going to do is we're at step 2. Sounds ridiculous. We've been here for 25 minutes, but we're going to add our egg and our vanilla extract and beat on high speed, probably for about, maybe for 1 minute. 1 minute. So I'm going to add the egg, and I'll use my spatula because I want to get as much of that, the liquid. Beautiful. And it might look a little bit curdled, but as in like it might feel like it's separated, that's fine. So 1 minute beating our egg and our vanilla into the mixture. I'm going to scrape down the side and then give it another 15 seconds. Beautiful. Okay, how are we traveling along? So I've got my beautiful creamed butter and sugar there. Excellent. And the next thing we're going to do, step 3 says in a separate bowl. So grab your smaller bowl. In a separate bowl, we're going to add 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of measured flour. Now, of course, I threw mine all over the workbench before, so that is not accurate anymore.
Excuse me, Beth, we've got self-raising and plain. Can you just let me know which one we're supposed to use? What's all-purpose?
Yep, plain flour. Yep. So I'm just tipping that, and this time I am going to sift. So 1 cup of plain flour. One cup of plain flour. Where's my? And then we've got half a cup of cocoa powder plus 2 tablespoons. So just making sure that we've got, and different cocoa powder has different colours. And cocoa powder does tend to get lumpy. So we definitely need to sift our cocoa powder. So that's half a cup. So half a cup and 2 tablespoons. 1. And I'm sealing up my cocoa powder because knowing me, I will tip it right across the bench. So half a cup plus 2 tablespoons. And then the last thing we're going to add is 1 teaspoon of baking soda.
I've just realised I didn't get Lachlan baking soda, Beth. I've got bicarb, I've got baking powder.
No, you're right, because bicarb is baking soda.
Oh, right.
You are all over it. So we've got bicarb soda. I'll just take that a little closer. You can see that. Great, because we're adding an acid to our ingredients. And if we added baking powder, then we'd end up with a bit more of a metallic taste to our cookies. And this creates a nice, soft, fluffy cookie. So we often, when we make cookies, we'll use bicarb soda or baking soda rather than baking powder. Different flavour and does a different thing. Great. So in my bowl here, I've got 1 cup of plain flour and half a cup plus 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Then the next thing I'm going to add is 1 teaspoon. So double check that you've got the right measurement. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And baking soda is the same. Sometimes it gets little lumps in it. So I'm just going to break that up through my beautiful. All right, I feel like I'm creating a mess. Okay, so we have got in here 1 cup of flour, 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and it says a pinch of salt, which I have worked out is 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So if you haven't got 1/8 of a teaspoon measure, I've got this tiny little guy here, just used 1/2 of a quarter. The other thing that I often will do in live classes is that I measure out onto the board like that and then just pick it up with my hands. And that's going to flavor, bring out the beautiful butter and all the flavors. Great. Let me declutter my space. It's very honest, isn't it? It's the you can see exactly how messy I am. All right, so we have got our wet mixture and we've got our dry mixture. And I'm going to use my spatula and very carefully, don't go crazy with this, very carefully mix your flours together or your dry mixture together. So go all the way to the bottom of your bowl, just making sure, take the top of your spatula and make sure you don't have any powdery patches. So use the very edge of your spatula. Right, and if there still is any lumps in there, you can break those lumps up with the back of your spatula or spoon. Okay, and then once you've done that, so I'll double check what I've got in here. We've got 1 cup of flour, plain flour. We've got 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. We've got 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and we've got 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And we are at step 3, so we've done that. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our dry ingredients to our creamed butter and sugar. Now the recipe says to add it with the mixture going, with the mixer going, but that's just a recipe for disaster in my mind. Beautiful. I'm going to use my spatula just to start this off, just so that if our beaters go on too high, you'll end up with cocoa powder across the kitchen. Beautiful. So once it's started to kind of become a little bit less powdery and a little bit more, I would call it raggy looking, then we can start our beaters going again. And then we'll add our chopped chips, but don't add your chopped chips before you do your beating. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to scrape my spatula on the side of, get all that extra mixture off, because that's all goodness and we don't want to waste that could be a whole bite of a cookie. Yeah, right. Fantastic. Then I'm always referring back to the recipe. The recipe says step 5, beat on low until combined, and then beat in the choc chips. So I've got a mixture of dark and milk. Yeah, milk and white. That's so that you guys can see it. All right, so I'm popping my mixture, my beaters into the mixture, and then I'm going to start my beaters. Great, and it is a sticky mixture. I'll just take that up to the camera. Let's see if you can see the light. So it's quite a sticky mixture. It's not like, yeah, it's sticky. And if you roll it now, it's going to be extremely sticky. So I'm going to use my spatula to scrape off as much of this cookie dough as I can. So you can see that even if I do this, it's a bit hard to get off. So using, you can use a spoon or a spatula. You want to get as much of that dough, of course, unless you're going to eat it, but I don't want to know about that because there's raw egg in it and I'm not allowed to promote that. Great. So if you're using all of your mixture, you're going to scrape it all off. Great, so scrape that off. Then you're going to add your choc chips. And then just mix them around. Beautiful. Oh, yum. This looks great. So, Connor and Chase, you were talking about your choc chips. So if you've made your own choc chips by just literally chopping up some baking chocolate, it will go in exactly at the same time. I'm just going to give everyone just 30 seconds. I'm going to grab some cling wrap from another room. Fabulous. And the last thing that we need to do in this section is that we're going to chill our dough. So, of course, our batter is made from all of that butter. And when we put it into the fridge, that butter is going to go really hard again. So just like when we took it out of the fridge, we're popping it back in the fridge and it's going to go hard. But it's also going to allow our cookies to have a really nice shape to them, and they're not going to spread. So we're actually cooling the fat. So to do this, I'll show you what I'm about to do. I've got a piece of cling wrap. And you might need help with this because it's quite a sticky dough. I'm scraping all of my dough onto here. Ooh. All right, and what I'm going to do here is a nice big long log. And because it's quite sticky and it's quite moldable, is that a word? Moldable. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Great. And then the next part is literally to pop it into the fridge for 3 hours. And that's going to allow the dough to firm up and relax. And then we're going to have beautiful shaped cookies. So that's the end of this part of the lesson. What I'm going to do is I'm going to film the next part of it, and I'm going to pop that up as part of the video. So the next part of your recipe will be following the video along. So otherwise, I want your cookies to be fabulous. So it's really, really important that you pop them in the fridge for that 3 hours. So do that. And then when you've done that, you will find the finished video up in the portal and you'll be able to cook along to the video at the end. Now, of course, we've made it, well, you might not have made as much mess as I have, but I've certainly got mess everywhere. So it is pack, wash, wipe time. So pack away all of your ingredients, wash up anything that you've used. I've got a whole stack of utensils that I've used here, and wipe down your bench. And then after that 3 hours, you can come back, watch the video to show how we finish off the recipe. Now, you can actually keep this dough, move my dirty washing out of the way. You can keep this dough in the fridge for, I think, where did I read that? For a few days. Keep in mind that there's egg and there's butter in there, so you can always come back to this tomorrow when you're wanting to cook some beautiful hot cookies. So that's it for today. Pack, wash, wipe, and pop your dough into the fridge. Beautiful. If you're joining me for the next recipe, which is cheesy cannelloni, yum, that's on at 3 o'clock. So you've got a bit of a break between for those that are joining me for both classes. And of course, the video is always up about half an hour after the class finishes for you to watch it in your own time. We were talking about the Facebook group yesterday. So I have sent email, like I've sent it a request to everybody that has joined April Bake School, and you can, so whatever email that your parent used to sign up, they've got a little email to say you can join April Bake School Facebook group. So if you want to do that, fabulous. Okay, great. Look forward to seeing your finished products. And if you're joining me at 3, look forward to cooking them. All right, fabulous. See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Fantastic. See you. Bye, guys.